Story 1. A Night in Antioch, California. This event unfolded in Antioch, California around 2 a.m. I found myself at a friend's house, nestled in the comfort of suburban warmth, engaged in lively conversation, and enjoying a few drinks. As is often the case when one is having a good time, the minutes flew by, blurring into hours. Unfortunately, I had consumed too much alcohol. My friend, adhering to a strict bedtime, left me with no choice but to leave earlier than I had hoped. Still feeling the effects of the alcohol, I was too embarrassed to ask if I could stay the night to sober up. It seemed he was either too inconsiderate or too intoxicated to offer, leaving me to ponder the value of minor inconveniences and their role in appreciating life's greater comforts. Needing time to sober up before driving, I stepped outside, only to find time crawling to a halt. The neighborhood, a concrete cul-de-sac, felt alien and daunting. My car was parked along the road, illuminated by a lone streetlight some 80 yards away. Staggering to my car, I managed to unlock it and settled into the back seat, seeking refuge in the shadows to avoid drawing attention. The comfort I sought eluded me, replaced by the discomfort of my makeshift bed and the enveloping darkness. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios, from police encounters to unforeseen accidents. Then, the sound of footsteps approached, pausing periodically as if someone were inspecting the cars with ill intent. As the footsteps drew nearer, stopping just outside my car, panic set in. Hidden beneath newspapers and a sweater, I remained motionless, hoping to blend in with the surroundings. A voice shattered the silence, a man's voice, taunting me in a chilling, playful tone that seemed to pierce through the night. Frozen with fear, I focused on minimizing my presence, barely breathing, as the man circled my car, testing the doors and tapping on the window. His voice grew more menacing, demanding a response I couldn't give. I prepared myself for the worst, envisioning a violent end. However, as suddenly as it began, the ordeal ended. The footsteps receded, leaving me alone with the dawning realization that I had survived. As the first light of dawn broke, I made my escape. Shaken, but unharmed, a night in Antioch I would never forget. Story 2. A Disturbing Encounter. In the early part of 2002, a significant event unfolded for my family shortly after the birth of our daughter. We had just moved into a new house located in a suburban neighborhood, the specifics of which I prefer to keep private. The house was relatively modern, mirroring the design and layout of the surrounding homes. Our adjustment to life in this new setting, along with our roles as new parents, was abruptly interrupted one night. While enjoying a movie, the sound of our daughter crying through the baby monitor prompted us to pause and attend to her needs. As I stood at the doorway, watching my wife soothe our newborn with her bottle, an unexpected sense of fear and surprise emanated from her. She was staring out the window next to the crib. Curious and concerned, I joined her by the window only to witness a startling sight. A woman, appearing to be around our age, was standing on our lawn, peering into our home. Instinctively, I prepared to confront her, but as I approached the front door, she fled. Despite a thorough search around our property, there was no sign of her. The incident left us feeling uneasy, but we eventually convinced ourselves she was gone and returned to bed. However, the woman reappeared the following night, once again fixating on our family from the same spot on our lawn. This time, I decided to directly address her, warning her of potential police involvement if she did not leave. Her response was a chilling scream that confirmed her mental distress before she hastily retreated. Following this encounter, we engaged the police, though their efforts to locate her that night were unsuccessful. For a month, all was quiet until one night, a peculiar giggling sound from the baby monitor awakened us. Investigating the noise revealed nothing amiss with our daughter, but the situation escalated when we discovered the woman inside our home, sitting on our bed. In a state of panic, we fled to our neighbor's house for safety and to call the police. The officers found the woman in our home, this time seated in the hallway, further intensifying our ordeal. This narrative encapsulates a harrowing experience that challenged our sense of security within our own home, marking a period of our lives with unease and vigilance. Story 3. A Night to Remember. I'd like to share a story with you, something that unfolded when I was 18, around 16 years ago. Back then, I was living with my parents in their comfortable home in suburban Colorado. It was a late night, about 11:30 p.m., and I was on the phone with my girlfriend. Deciding it was time to head up to my room, I planned to switch to the phone there to avoid waking my parents, who I assumed were already asleep. Voices carried easily in our house, and I'd been reprimanded a few times before for late-night calls. I asked my girlfriend to hold on while I switched phones. Placing the handset on the counter, where it usually hung on the wall, I hurried upstairs to my room. It was chilly, the window left open. After closing it with a slam, I picked up the phone by my bed. "Hang on, babe," I said. "I'll just go hang up the one downstairs." I left the phone on my bed and descended. Reaching the bottom, I turned left, stopping in my tracks. The phone, previously left on the counter, was now neatly hung up. Confused and slightly unnerved, I stood there for a moment. Could my parents have done it? No, that seemed unlikely. I would have heard them, and it had only been about 30 seconds. I reasoned with myself, thinking perhaps I had hung it up absent-mindedly before heading upstairs. But that couldn't be right. It would mean I'd hung up on my girlfriend. Puzzled, I checked the dining room. Empty. Returning upstairs, I listened at my parents' door, hearing my dad's snores. What was happening? Entering my room, my heart skipped a beat. The phone, left on my bed, was now on its cradle. I scanned the dark hallway. No one. Racing downstairs, I was met with another shock. The living room phone was gone. My skin crawled with goosebumps, my heart thundering. I sprinted back up, checked the closet, empty. Picking up my bedroom phone, a voice chilled me to the bone. "I came in through your bedroom window." I nearly dropped the phone. Impossible, I thought. My bedroom was on the second floor. Yet, turning to the window, there it was, a large extension ladder against the house. In panic, I dropped the phone and barged into my parents' room, pounding on the door and shouting about an intruder. My mom, alarmed and confused, opened the door. "Inside," I explained frantically as my mom grabbed my dad's work cell from his jeans to call the police. The police arrived within 15 minutes, searched the house, but found no one. They did, however, discover the living room phone in the middle of our yard. That night left us with more questions than answers, a chilling reminder of how quickly safety can be breached. Story 4: An Unsettling Christmas Evening. Something quite eerie occurred to me on Christmas. I had spent the morning celebrating the holiday with my family, but by Christmas night, I found myself obligated to head into work to complete a proposal for a potential new client. Needless to say, the prospect of going to work on such a festive day was far from ideal. My workplace was situated in a downtown building, fairly close to several nightclubs and bars. My office occupied the 23rd floor, and while I had my own office space, most of the floor was filled with cubicles. My office was tucked away in the far corner, adjacent to my boss's office. To reach my office, I had to walk past all the cubicles. On this particular night, I arrived around 8 or 9 p.m., and to my surprise, there was no one else around. This wasn't my first time working alone in the office, and the solitude was peaceful, but it also allowed my imagination to run wild, occasionally making me uneasy. As I traversed the path beside the cubicles, I couldn't help but be reminded of what I was missing at home. Christmas lights adorned people's workspaces, creating a surreal atmosphere. Although there were no lights on, the glow from these Christmas decorations provided enough illumination. Upon reaching my office, I unlocked the door but left it slightly ajar. My computer and desk were positioned in a way that I couldn't see anyone approaching my door due to a large glass window. This lack of visibility annoyed me because I never knew who was knocking until I got up to open the door. I settled down at my desk and started working as diligently as I could, eager to finish and return home. After about an hour, I heard the unmistakable sound of the main entrance door closing. I hadn't heard it open, but the closing noise was distinct. At this point, I was more curious than spooked, wondering who else had the misfortune of having to work late. I stood up and ventured out onto the office floor, scanning for any signs of a colleague. However, there was no one in sight. I called out loudly, "Hello," but received no response. Now I began to feel a sense of unease and paranoia. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was either still in the office and not responding or had entered and left quickly. I I was just about to turn back to my desk when I noticed a head peering out from a cubicle on the opposite side of the floor, facing me. It was a man, but I couldn't discern any details of his face. Thinking he might be playing a prank on me, I shouted over to him, "What a time to have to come in, huh?" I hoped for a friendly laugh in response, but the man remained motionless, not uttering a word. This silence sent shivers down my spine, and I called out again, saying, "I can see you, buddy." Still, the man didn't budge. Uncertain about the situation and feeling increasingly on edge, I reached into my pocket, reassuring myself that my keys were there. Slowly, I started walking towards the entrance door, all the while keeping my eyes on the mysterious figure. As I approached, he continued to watch me intently. I briefly glanced at the entrance door for just a second, and then looked back, only to find the man had vanished. This sudden disappearance left me in shock. I thought to myself, could he be moving towards me? With that unsettling thought, I began to jog towards the door. As I passed through it, I couldn't see the man following me. I hurried to the elevator, pressed the button, and anxiously turned around. The elevator door closed, emitting the same noise as before. Thankfully, it reopened immediately, and I stepped inside, hitting the button for the first floor. I glanced at the door, but the mysterious man didn't emerge. Once I reached home, I shared this chilling encounter with my wife and felt compelled to inform my boss as well. I needed a valid reason for not completing the proposal that night. Fortunately, my boss was understanding. 2 days later, I returned to work when everyone else was there, but I never discovered who the mysterious man was or the reason behind his presence. Nothing was stolen or tampered with in my office. Story 5. An unsettling encounter by the ocean. About 15 years ago, an incident occurred that I still remember vividly. Living close to the ocean, I had a particular spot on the beach that I frequented. It was secluded, rarely visited by others, providing a perfect escape for solitude. One Saturday afternoon, I found myself there, soaking in the sun and the serene atmosphere. It was common for me to drift off to sleep under the warm embrace of the sun, and on this occasion, I did just that. Upon waking, I noticed the sun was setting, indicating I had slept for quite some time. Glancing to my left, I observed a woman sitting nearby in the sand. Unlike typical beachgoers, she wasn't on a towel but directly on the sand, dressed in jean shorts and a bathing suit top, her striking red hair flowing in the breeze. Initially, I paid her no mind, but soon realized she was staring intently at the ocean, seemingly oblivious to my presence or anything else around her. Driven by curiosity, I greeted her. She responded without looking at me, and suddenly she stood up and walked away. Although her behavior seemed odd, I didn't dwell on it much. Roughly 30 minutes later, I decided to head home, reflecting on a day well spent. Back at home, while preparing dinner, my phone rang. It was my mother, and as we engaged in our usual conversations, I noticed a folded piece of paper protruding from my purse. Puzzled, since I couldn't recall placing any paper there, I continued talking while unfolding it. The contents of the paper were shocking. "I was going to rob you and stab you in the throat, but you looked so peaceful." I dropped the phone in disbelief, relaying the chilling message to my mother. The memory of the red-haired woman on the beach immediately came to mind, leaving us both in utter astonishment. This experience, unsettling yet strangely introspective, serves as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of human interactions and the profound impact of mere presence. Story 6. Hi, my name is Trevor, and what I'm about to share is by far the scariest event I've ever experienced. This incident occurred in May of this year. I'm a 22-year-old male, in pretty good shape, and work as a first responder, so I've encountered a wide array of situations. I live with my parents in an upper middle-class community in a town known for its low crime rate. Here's my story. My parents had gone to Florida to visit some family, leaving me and my German Shepherd alone for the week. Our house is 2 stories, with my parents' bedroom on the first floor. One night, while sleeping in their room with my dog, the bed positioned between 2 open windows with screens, something happened. Around 2 a.m., as I was drifting off to sleep, I was jolted awake by the sound of screaming. Initially, I dismissed it, attributing the noise to the neighborhood kids who often played outside. However, about 10 minutes later, the screaming echoed again, this time awakening my dog, who became alert. Despite this, I still tried to ignore it. Another 10 minutes passed, and the screaming occurred again. But this time I realized it wasn't a child's scream. It was a single person emitting a loud, piercing sound akin to someone being stabbed. My dog began to act extremely agitated, and I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move. 5 minutes later, the screaming intensified, now sounding as though it was right outside the window, causing my ears to ring. My dog was in a frenzy, and I was on the verge of a panic attack. Peering out the window, I saw an elderly woman with long gray hair still screaming. Springing into action, I grabbed my dad's pistol, though it was a revolver without any bullets. I hoped the mere sight of it would be enough to deter her. Returning to the window, she had disappeared. I dialed 911, but as I spoke to the operator, I heard the front door's glass shatter. Approaching, I saw the old woman trying to unlock the door, her arm sliding against the broken glass, deeply cutting herself without any sign of pain, all the while giving me a chilling stare combined with laughter and screams. Terrified and crying, I pointed the unloaded gun at her. She taunted me to do it, but I couldn't. Then, the lights of an approaching vehicle appeared, and she retreated, still laughing. The police arrived, commanding her to drop a knife. They took my statement, and I later learned she was an escaped psychiatric patient who had previously attacked a couple in a nearby trailer. Fortunately, they survived. I never understood why she chose my house. After repairing the door and cleaning up, my parents called, having heard about a break-in in our area. I reassured them it was our house, but not to worry. To the woman who attacked, I hope you're receiving the care you need.